Ladies and gentlemen, right now, at this very moment, something extraordinary is unfolding. Something so profound it will shake the very foundations of what we believe is possible. There is a force greater than us, a divine energy. Call it God, the universe source. That is quietly, powerfully preparing a comeback that will shock the world. This is not just a comeback of an external entity. It is a comeback within us, within our consciousness, within the very essence of who we are. For too long, many of us have lived trapped by the limitations of old beliefs, conditioned to accept a reality dictated by fear, scarcity, and separation. But what if I told you those limits are illusions? What if the divine is awakening in ways we have never seen before? That the God within us is gearing up to rise, evolve, and explode into our collective reality? Science is now revealing that our minds, our emotions, and our energy create the blueprint of our lives. Our thoughts are not just fleeting moments. They are powerful signals that shape matter itself. And God, the creative intelligence of the universe, is responding to those signals, waiting for us to step into a new frequency of being. This comeback will shock everyone because it will transcend the old stories of despair and division. It will break through the noise of doubt and limitation. It will be a wave of consciousness so massive that it will transform sickness into health, chaos into peace, and isolation into unity. But here's the truth. This divine resurgence will not come from the outside. It will come from within each of us. It will come when enough people awaken to the truth that we are co-creators of reality. When we choose to let go of fear and step boldly into love, faith, and infinite possibility. Imagine a world where miracles become the norm, where the impossible becomes possible. This is the comeback God is preparing, a revolution of the mind, heart, and soul. It will shake the foundations of science, religion, politics, and culture, because it will remind us that God is not a distant figure, but the living, breathing intelligence that flows through everything. So, I invite you today to open your heart, expand your mind, and become the beacon of this divine comeback. Release the past, release the pain, and step into the power of who you truly are. Because when the God within you rises, it will shock everyone, including yourself. And that is the greatest comeback story ever told. Right now, an extraordinary transformation is quietly taking place, one so profound that it will ripple through every aspect of our lives and the world around us. This is not just a change in circumstances or external events, but a deep, energetic shift rooted in a divine force that has always existed, but is now preparing to reveal itself in ways we have never witnessed before. This force, which many call God, the universe, or source, is awakening to a new level of expression, and it is orchestrating a comeback that will surprise and challenge the collective understanding of reality. This comeback is unlike anything we've experienced because it is not bound by the familiar patterns of history or human expectation. It transcends time and space, moving beyond religious dogma and spiritual cliches to become a living, breathing phenomenon that touches every individual on a personal level. It is a resurgence of divine power that reclaims the forgotten connection between the human soul and the infinite intelligence that governs all life. The energy behind this comeback is subtle yet undeniable. It flows through the hearts of those who sense that something greater is possible, something beyond the chaos, fear, and division that have dominated recent years. It calls to the deepest parts of us, inviting a renewal of faith not in external institutions or ideologies, but in the transformative power that lies within ourselves. This divine force is not static. It is dynamic and responsive, awakening consciousness and inviting humanity to evolve. It is a comeback that is preparing quietly, but with unstoppable momentum, ready to emerge in ways that will challenge the status quo and shift the trajectory of human existence. The significance of this moment is often missed because it does not announce itself with fanfare, but those attuned to its frequency feel its approach like the gentle but persistent stirring before a great storm. This divine comeback is not happening out there somewhere, separate from us. It is occurring deep within our own consciousness and the very essence of who we are. The true power of this resurgence lies in the realization that the divine is not some distant force watching over us, but a living presence residing within each person. This shift in awareness moves us from seeing God as external and unreachable to recognizing the infinite intelligence that pulses within our own being. Our consciousness is the gateway through which this powerful energy flows, and as it awakens, it transforms not only our inner world, but also the reality we experience. At the core of this understanding is the idea that consciousness is not just a passive observer, but the creative force behind existence. What we think, feel, and believe shapes the energy we emit, which in turn influences the world around us. The divine essence within us is waiting to be acknowledged and activated, ready to lead us toward a higher state of awareness and transformation. When we connect with this inner presence, we tap into an unlimited source of wisdom, healing, and creative potential. This process is often subtle and unfolds gradually as layers of old conditioning, fear, and doubt dissolve. It invites us to move beyond the surface-level experiences of life and delve into a deeper reality where we are united with the universal flow of life energy. This awakening in consciousness is the foundation for the divine comeback, signaling a shift from fragmentation to wholeness, from separation to unity. As we embrace this inner transformation, we begin to realize that the essence of God is not something to be found outside ourselves, but the very core of our being. This internal awakening empowers us to become co-creators of our reality, aligning with the divine purpose that is unfolding within and around us in profound ways. For too long, many have been confined by limiting beliefs, ideas ingrained through culture, upbringing, and experience that tell us what is possible and what is not. These beliefs act like invisible chains, restricting our potential and keeping us trapped in a narrow perception of reality. But these limitations are not fixed truths. They are illusions created by habit and conditioning. When we recognize them as such, we open the door to new possibilities and a broader understanding of life. These limiting beliefs often come disguised as facts, convincing us that the world is divided, that resources are scarce, and that change is slow or impossible. They tell us that we are separate from one another and from the divine source of life. Yet, these are merely stories we have accepted without questioning. They are mental constructs that shape our experience but do not define the ultimate nature of reality. As this divine comeback unfolds, it challenges these old narratives and invites us to release what no longer serves us. The awakening of consciousness reveals that many of our perceived boundaries are self-imposed, maintained by fear and resistance rather than truth. When we begin to dissolve these mental barriers, we start to see that the potential for healing, growth, and transformation is far greater than we imagined. This process requires courage and willingness to step into the unknown, to question deeply held assumptions, and to embrace uncertainty. It is through this journey that we begin to realize that reality is far more fluid, responsive, and interconnected than the limiting beliefs have allowed. The divine comeback is a call to reclaim the power that has always been ours, the power to transcend old limitations and to create a new reality rooted in possibility, abundance, and unity. By shifting our beliefs, we shift our experience, aligning ourselves with the expansive nature of the divine energy moving through all things. This realization is a key step in awakening the true potential of both the individual and collective consciousness. Our thoughts and emotions are far more than fleeting mental states. They are powerful forces that shape the very fabric of our reality. Science is increasingly revealing that consciousness is not separate from the physical world but intimately connected to it. Every thought we hold, every feeling we nurture, sends out energy waves that influence the environment around us, subtly guiding how our lives unfold. This means that what we focus on internally creates ripples that manifest in the external world, forming the blueprint for our experiences. Our minds act like antennas, broadcasting frequencies that attract matching energies. Positive, elevated emotions like love, gratitude, and joy send out signals that align with health, abundance, and connection. Conversely, negative emotions rooted in fear, doubt, or anger produce energy that can create obstacles and limitations. This dynamic interaction between inner experience and outer reality reveals that we are not passive victims of circumstance, but active participants in shaping our existence. This understanding shifts the way we perceive ourselves and the divine. Instead of waiting for external forces to change our lives, we recognize that the divine power is accessed through the alignment of our inner states. When we cultivate awareness of our thoughts and feelings, we gain the ability to consciously direct the energy we emit. This empowers us to create intentional change, moving beyond reactive patterns to a place of creative mastery. By mastering our inner world, we tap into the creative intelligence of the universe, which responds to the signals we send. This process is the foundation for the divine comeback that is underway, as more individuals awaken to their role as co-creators. The transformation of thought into reality is no longer a distant spiritual idea, but an observable, scientific truth that connects us to the infinite potential within ourselves and the cosmos. There is a living, intelligent force that responds to the energy we emit. It does not judge, it does not hesitate. It simply mirrors. What we project through our thoughts, emotions, intentions, and beliefs is received by this divine intelligence and returned to us as experience. Whether we call it God, the universe, or the field, this creative source operates with precision, responding not to what we say we want, but to what we truly feel and believe at the deepest levels of our being. When we align with elevated states of consciousness, such as love, gratitude, compassion, and joy, we enter into resonance with this creative force. We become conduits for the divine to express itself through us. Our energy becomes coherent, our intentions powerful, and our lives begin to reflect a new reality shaped by clarity, harmony, and purpose. This is not wishful thinking or vague spirituality. It is the direct result of interacting with the laws of energy and consciousness that govern the universe. This divine responsiveness is always present, waiting for us to recognize our part in the process. Every time we shift from fear to trust, from chaos to calm, from limitation to vision, we are sending a new signal into the field. And that signal becomes the foundation upon which new outcomes are built. The divine comeback is not happening in spite of us. It is happening through us as we learn to tune our inner world to the frequency of possibility and purpose. The more we consciously engage with this process, the more we understand that we are never alone or separate. We are in constant dialogue with the divine intelligence, and every shift in our inner state is a message received. It listens not with ears, but with vibration, with frequency, and with presence. The divine comeback that is unfolding is not a subtle adjustment or a quiet restoration of balance. It is a radical transformation that will turn despair into peace, division into unity, and limitation into limitless potential. The energy behind this comeback is disruptive in the most beautiful way. It is not here to reinforce the old structures, but to dissolve them. It is here to rewrite the script that humanity has been living under for centuries. Scripts of suffering, separation, and survival. This wave of divine intelligence is not only spiritual in nature, but deeply practical. It will move through the hearts and minds of people across the globe, awakening the dormant potential that has always been there but long forgotten. It will manifest as breakthroughs in healing, in understanding, in connection, and in compassion. It will bring about a level of clarity that allows people to see beyond the illusions that have kept them stuck and into a vision of who they truly are. When this energy touches a life, it does not leave it the same. It reorganizes the way we see ourselves and the world. It dissolves old emotional patterns, releases inherited trauma, and invites a new relationship with reality, one that is based on wholeness, not fragmentation. This transformation is not coming from a place of force, but from alignment. It is what happens when a higher intelligence meets an open heart and a willing mind. The shock will not come from destruction, but from the speed and magnitude of restoration. People will begin to witness impossible things become possible, healing without explanation, peace where there was turmoil, abundance where there was lack. What once seemed like isolated spiritual concepts will become lived experiences. The comeback will be undeniable because it will be deeply personal, undeniably collective, and profoundly real. This divine resurgence is not something descending from the sky or erupting from the earth. It is emerging from within each individual. It is not reserved for the chosen few or those who appear spiritually advanced. It is a universal call rising from the depths of human consciousness, stirring something ancient and eternal within us all. The comeback of the divine is not about returning to a distant God, but about remembering the divine blueprint encoded in every human being. That spark, that inner knowing, that quiet nudge, it's all part of the unfolding return. As more people begin to turn inward and listen, they are discovering that the source of power they've been seeking is already inside them. This is not ego-based empowerment, but a deeper recognition of our intrinsic connection to the creative force of life. The divine comeback begins when a person dares to believe that the voice within them might be real, that the longing for more is not delusion but destiny. This internal awakening does not require a specific religion, dogma, or teacher. It simply asks for willingness, to feel, to observe, to be still, and to allow the deeper truth to rise. In a world that constantly pulls our attention outward, the real revolution is happening inside. It is the quiet courage to break free from inherited patterns, to unlearn fear, and to awaken the dormant energy that has waited patiently for recognition. As individuals begin to live from this place of inner alignment, their lives change in tangible ways. They no longer seek validation from the external world. They move with clarity, intention, and deep peace. The more this happens across the collective, the more visible and powerful the comeback becomes. What once felt like personal healing becomes a ripple, then a wave, then a tide transforming everything it touches. Awakening to the truth that we are co-creators of our reality marks a profound turning point in human evolution. It means stepping out of the victim mindset, where life happens asterisk to asterisk us, and into a space where life begins to respond asterisk through asterisk us. This is not just a shift in attitude, it is a shift in consciousness. It is the realization that the divine intelligence animating the universe is also present within us, and that through our thoughts, emotions, choices, and intentions, we participate in shaping the world we experience. When we align with this truth, we begin to live not by default, but by design. We no longer allow fear, scarcity, or past conditioning to dictate the direction of our lives. Instead, we choose to think, feel, and act from a space of higher awareness, knowing that what we create internally will eventually show up externally. This is the real power of co-creation. It invites us into full responsibility and full possibility at the same time. To awaken as a co-creator is to accept that the future is not something we wait for. It is something we build with every belief we hold and every emotion we cultivate. This isn't about controlling every detail of life, but about aligning with the frequency of what we desire, peace, love, healing, connection, and becoming a vibrational match for it. In this state, we stop chasing outcomes and start embodying them. The divine comeback is gaining strength through this collective awakening. Every person who takes ownership of their inner world adds momentum to this shift. It's not about perfection, but about intention. It's about waking up each day and choosing to participate in something bigger than oneself by becoming the vessel through which divine intelligence flows, acts, and creates in real time. This comeback of divine energy is not only a personal or spiritual event, it is a shift so deep and far-reaching that it challenges the very foundations of how we've structured our world. As consciousness rises, the systems and institutions built on fear, control, and division begin to crack under the pressure of a higher intelligence moving through humanity. What once seemed immovable, rigid ideologies, outdated beliefs, oppressive power structures, begins to look increasingly fragile in the face of awakened awareness. This is not destruction for the sake of chaos, but transformation that emerges when truth becomes more powerful than tradition. As more people awaken to the divine within, the lens through which we view science, religion, politics, and culture starts to shift. The binary thinking that has dominated human history, us versus them, right versus wrong, spirit versus matter, no longer holds up under the weight of expanding consciousness. Instead, a more unified understanding begins to take form, one where opposites are not enemies but parts of a greater whole. This shift does not ask us to abandon what came before, but to evolve it. It calls for a new way of seeing the world, one where compassion is not weakness, where intuition is not irrational, and where divine intelligence is not confined to sacred texts or distant heavens, but recognized as a living presence in everyday life. It redefines what it means to be human, what it means to lead, and what it means to serve. The shock of this comeback will lie in how it turns the familiar upside down. Leaders will emerge not through dominance, but through presence. Healing will no longer be an exception, but an expectation. The divine will not be a mystery hidden in symbols, but a reality lived through experience, embodiment, and conscious choice. When we begin to embrace the divine within, something extraordinary happens. We awaken to the truth that we are not separate from the sacred, but are active expressions of it. This realization doesn't come as a dramatic moment of enlightenment for most, but as a steady unveiling, a remembering of what has always been true. In that remembrance, we begin to feel a power rise from within, a power not rooted in ego or control, but in alignment, coherence, and deep presence. That rising, subtle at first, becomes the force behind the greatest comeback ever witnessed, the return of divinity through human embodiment. This is not a mystical ideal, but a lived transformation. It happens in the way we think, in the way we speak, in the way we carry ourselves. It happens when we stop seeking proof of our worth from the outside world and begin to trust the voice of stillness within. It happens when we choose peace over reaction, when we show compassion where judgment once ruled, when we speak truth in the face of fear. These small acts, aligned with the divine frequency, begin to rewrite the energetic field around us. The more we live from this place, the more we shift from effort to flow. Life no longer feels like something to survive, but something sacred to co-create. The divine comeback expresses itself through us, not as something we do, but as something we become. And in that becoming, we shock even ourselves. We heal in ways we were told were impossible. We connect with people and purpose that once felt out of reach. We begin to radiate a frequency that influences others without saying a word, a quiet transmission of truth and love that speaks louder than any doctrine ever could. This is the return of the divine in its most undeniable form.